You start packing up, you know that it's gonna be a 15-minute ride back to the ship, and so you'll be there at 5 o'clock, 1 hour before departure at 6 o'clock. As you arrive at 5 o'clock, the ship is just about to sail. And now you look, but it's 5 o'clock. You are right, you are on the correct time. The ship is on the wrong time, but that's how they want it. And so you arrive there at 5 o'clock sharp, and the ship is sailing away. And you're running there, trying to catch the ship. The gangway is already out. The ship is at sea and pulling away. And you're there, distressed, upset. All your belongings are on board. And people are just filming you, shooting a video of you, laughing at you, and leaving comments like, look at this fool. You must have been drunk. Hi, Pam here. Sometimes you look at YouTube videos and you will see these videos about passengers missing their cruise ship. And that's followed by nasty comments in the comment section about, how stupid can you be, how wasted can you be to miss the sailing time of your cruise ship. But actually, it's very easy to miss your ship. Every day around the world, some passengers are missing their ship and some crew members are missing their ship. Why? The time zone difference. The time zones can be very tricky. I mean, you all know the Earth is not flat. It's a spheroid, oblong. An oblate spheroid, right? At any given time, in a 360-degree space, there will be different time zones, right? 24 different time zones. And the ship is moving from country to country. So the ship is going to change its time zone on different days. So you're in a situation where you go to sleep today, tonight, and you wake up tomorrow, the time is 1 hour ahead or 1 hour back. And that can really mess you up. It can confuse passengers and crew members. So there's two things here, First of all, there's the official time zones spread across 24 hours, right, around the world. But secondly, you also have ST versus LT, ship time versus land time, which does not always correspond. So firstly, the time zones, right? Your ship might leave Miami today and arrive in Cozumel in 2 days. Now Cozumel is in Mexico. The time in Cozumel right now is 1 hour behind the time in Miami. And so as you go to sleep tonight, you're gonna wake up tomorrow morning in Cozumel and the time is gonna go back 1 hour. As you leave Cozumel and you go to Nassau in the Bahamas, the time in Nassau is 1 hour forward from the time in Cozumel. The time in the Cayman Islands is different from the time in Miami. It's 1 hour difference. So it can be tricky as the ship is moving from the Bahamas to Cozumel to the Cayman Island to Curacao. The time in Curacao is different from the time in Cozumel. And you see that happens, that can really that can really confuse you actually, And then added to that, you've got the DST, the Daylight Saving Time. Now, Daylight Saving Time is observed in the US, but it's not observed in many countries in the Caribbean. And so, say this year, 2023, right? On the 10th of March, Cozumel and Miami were in the same time zone. But today, Cozumel and Miami have a difference of 1 hour. because the DST has happened. When was it? The 12th of March? Yeah. And then in November, first Sunday of November, the daylight saving time will change again. And then again, the time between Miami and Cozumel will be the same. And so as the ship is going from country to country, you will see that you have to take into account your time zones and then your DSTs and which countries are observing DSTs, which countries are not observing DSTs, and you always have to set your watch accordingly. If you're in Europe, it's even more complicated. Again, many different countries with many different time zones. The time in the UK is not the same as the time in France. Although they're very close to each other, London and Paris have a 1 hour difference. And then you've got Western European time, and that's France, Germany, Italy, Denmark, Belgium, Switzerland, all these countries on the one time zone. And then you go a little bit east, and you've got Greece, Romania, Bulgaria, other Eastern European countries, who are in a different time zone from Western European time. So they're 1 hour ahead of Germany and France and Belgium and others. And 2 hours ahead from London. And so as the ship is moving around from Marseille in France to Barcelona in Spain to the UK to Germany to Scandinavia, Norway, Scandinavia is another situation again, because yes, Scandinavia, you've got Norway, Sweden and Finland, but Finland is not in the same time zone as Sweden. Finland is 1 hour ahead of Sweden and Norway. And then DST in Europe is different from DST in the US, whereby in the US, the daylight saving time is from the second Sunday of March to the first Sunday of November. In Europe, DST, actually called summertime, is from the last Sunday of March to the last Sunday of October. And so today being the 30th of March, summertime has just been changed some few days ago. But in the US, summertime was changed on the 12th of March. In Europe, the time was changed, when? That was 2 days ago, 3 days ago. And then some European countries are not observing DST at all. Turkey doesn't observe DST. Belarus doesn't observe DST. Russia does not observe DST. Iceland doesn't observe DST. And you see, how confusing the situation can be. You have to be aware of your time zones, you have to be aware of your summertime changes, your daylight saving times. And then the second part of this is ST versus LT, ship time versus land time. You might be doing everything right. You might be aware of all the different time zones. You're a seasoned traveler. You always put your time in sync with the country where you're going to. You've got a smartphone, your smartphone automatically readjusts the time according to your location. But even if you're doing everything right, you can still be screwed by the ST, the ship time. So what's the difference? The ship time will not always correspond to the actual time zone. So yes, the ship left New York on its way to Cozumel, or Florida on its way to Cozumel. Currently, there is a 1 hour difference between Eastern time and Cozumel time, meaning Cozumel is 1 hour behind, but the ship time might remain the same as Eastern time. All right, so right now it's 8 o'clock in the morning in Cozumel, that's the actual time, and it's 9 o'clock Eastern time. But the cruise ship time remains Eastern time. So it's 8 o'clock in Cozumel, but it's 9 o'clock on the ship. And that can get confusing. And why they're doing that, I mean, not all cruise ships, but some cruise ships do that, because you find that on ships that keep on changing time zones, right? Meaning, okay, the ship left Miami, now there's a 1 hour difference with Cozumel, but tomorrow the ship will be in Nassau, and Nassau has a 1 hour difference ahead of Cozumel, and then after that, the ship is going to go back to another time zone, when it's going to be 1 hour, when the time zone is going to be 1 hour behind. And so, because the time is always changing, to avoid messing up the physiological clock of the crew, sometimes ship's management will decide to just keep the ship time at all time for the entire 7-day cruise into the Caribbean. And they will give you some warning, and they will tell you that, listen, the ship time is the home port time. Our home port is Miami, and for the next 7 days, that's going to be our ship time. As we go to different countries, there will be different time zones. Always have your time, your phones, your watches on the ship's time to avoid any changes. Because imagine, you're working and maybe you're a waiter, you're finishing your shift at 11 o'clock at night and you go to bed at around midnight, and then you start your shift at 5 o'clock in the morning, so you wake up usually at around 4:30, and now the time goes 1 hour forward, so you sleep at your usual midnight, but now instead of waking up at 4:30, you are effectively waking up at 3:30, and then after that you go into a different time zone for the next port, and again it's another hour forward. And so now you're finishing again at 11 p.m. and you're going to sleep at midnight. But you have to wake up 1 hour earlier again. 2 hours difference in your sleep cycle. That can mess you up. 2 hours difference in 4 days, that can mess you up a little bit. And then as the ship is returning to port, now the time is winding down again. And you find that now you're starting 1 hour later, and sometimes 2 hours later. And that's why sometimes on some cruise ships, management will decide to just keep the ship's time. And again, you might be doing everything right, you're a seasoned traveler, you're observing the time zones, you're synchronizing your watch and your phone to the local time. But unfortunately, the ship is not on the local time, the ship is on the ship time. And it's happened before, whereby you go to the Cayman Island or you go to Cozumel, because Cozumel is a port where a lot of people seem to be missing their cruise ships, right? So you go to Cozumel, or Nassau is another one where people miss their ship quite a lot as well, But anyway, you go to Cozumel, there's a 1 hour difference. You look at your time, at your smartphone, and yes, it's synchronized to the local time. There's a 1 hour difference. You're asking the local people where you are, at the beach, wherever you are, is this the correct time? The time has changed 1 hour, right? We're 1 hour behind Eastern time. And they confirm, yes, sir, this is the time, you're on the right time. I said, okay, perfect. And so the ship is going to leave at 6 p.m. You're telling yourself, okay, the ship is leaving at 6 p.m. They want all the passengers to be on board by 5:30. To be even safer, I want to be on board by 5 o'clock. So, everything is set, you're very strict about your time, you set up everything correctly. 4:45, you start packing up. You know that it's going to be a 15-minute ride back to the ship. And so you'll be there at 5 o'clock, 1 hour before departure at 6 o'clock. As you arrive at 5 o'clock, the ship is just about to sail. And now you look, what? But it's 5 o'clock. I said, no, the ship was actually on ship's time. The ship did not change the time to the local time. You are right, you are on the correct time. The ship is on the wrong time, but that's how they want it. And so you arrive there at 5 o'clock sharp, but it's actually 6 o'clock on the ship, and the ship is sailing away. And you're running there, trying to catch the ship. The gangway is already out, the ship is at sea and pulling away, and you're there distressed, upset, all your belongings are on board, and you know, people are just filming you, shooting a video of you, laughing at you, and leaving comments like, look at this fool, you know, you must have been drunk, you know. How stupid can you be? Cheers. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video till the end. If you've liked this video, please leave me a like. If you have any comments, leave a comment. If you have any questions, leave a question. I'll answer you. Don't forget to subscribe. My goal is to now get to 600 subscribers by the end of the month. Around the United States, it doesn't give me anything additional or takes anything from my qualifications. When I know I'm working. Now it's this video is in a hotel, right? Because this has been on my mind for a long working in the Navy. But I understand the large amount of this whole degrading the crew and stuff. You go on a cruise ship every year.